With that out of the way, on stage is our last speaker, Tereza Iofciu, who leads a data science team at FreeNow in Hamburg and is also an ambassador of the Women in AI community in that same city. In her free time, she draws artworks and publishes them on Tumblr and whatnot under the name Tiepiep. This is Project Managing in Data Science team presented by Tereza Iofciu.
Thank you for the introduction. So, hi everybody. Who is not tired? Okay, cool. Yeah. Just like a small, like to know each other. Like, who here is a project manager in any sense? Okay. Who is a data scientist? Okay. Who is a developer? Okay. Who is none of those? What are you? Okay. And you? Architect. Okay, cool. So, well, you're in the IT world, so you're all aware of the problems that we have. So, just to start, okay, so I just wanted to say like who the room is. So, yeah, so basically I've worked in data science and data engineering for over 10 years. This was about 3 years ago. So, 3 years ago, I had been working for over 10 years. And in all those years, I basically thought project management, product owners, and all of these roles are like, you know, like a waste of salary. I was really sure of that. Who is under the impression in this room that we don't need product managers? Is there anybody? Okay. So, okay, no judging. It's safe room. So basically what I did in order to challenge, like there was an opportunity and I took it. I was like, why do I hate this role? And then I became one, right? I was like, I mean, how hard can this role be? Is it hard? Yeah. Okay, so there's a, yeah. Okay, so basically, I'm gonna walk you through like a story of like how my trip through product management was. So basically, like I started, of course, I thought it's really easy, so I didn't read many books about it. Who reads books, right? So basically, we worked on the first project, and this is about this first project where we basically worked on one of our first projects called Dwarf Plus Plus. I heard that I'm getting a beard if I say this in this city. Who here has seen the dwarfs? Dwarfs, they're everywhere. Yeah, come on. Okay, so basically, Free Now, where I work, is used to be My Taxi, called My Taxi. You have it also in Poland everywhere. So we are founded in 2009 in Hamburg. We have, actually I have a clicker, sorry, forgot it. Yeah, we have, I don't know, a lot of drivers, a lot of, this is my mandatory slide, a lot of millions of passengers, and we are in over 13 countries, over 100 cities. We have developer offices in Hamburg, Barcelona, and Berlin, and over 1,000 employees at the moment, and what I call about over 40 dataists, that's people working with and around data. And the project I'm gonna talk about is not about dwarfs. They are gonna come back later, but it is about Fair Calculator. So Fair Calculator is like sounds like a pretty basic project when you think of a taxi industry. You basically want to go from A to B, and it's nice when the app or Google Maps or whoever tells you how much it's gonna cost. So, and this team who was working on pricing came to us. They wanted to revamp this project, and it was like, how hard can it be? But actually, when you think about every city where we operate is having different legislations and different rules and different infrastructure. So basically, every city is like a new market. It's like a new model if you think about it from a data perspective. So what works for estimating how much a trip was going to cost in Warsaw is completely different than how it would cost in Hamburg. And the original project, what was implemented from like My Taxi Free Now is like over 10 years old, was like a bunch of rules put together and stored in a database, and then more developers put more rules. This didn't make sense anymore. More rules, more rules, more rules. And so it was like very complicated to edit and update and, you know, change something. So basically, we met the team and we said, like, we can do it. It sounds like a linear problem. We can solve it. You know, we train a linear regression or whatever. It sounds like a linear problem. The development team was like, wait, what? We already tried all the possibilities. So we have all the rules. We already tried all the possibilities. It's not working. We need neural networks. We're like, wait, how could you have tried all the possibilities? Like, if you think like, okay, you have the distance, you have the time of day, you have, if you go to the city, if you come back from the city, you know, like traffic, but you don't actually know the traffic. So you have all this historical data. Like, how could you have, as a normal person, have tried all the possibilities? So this discussion in our first meeting went like this, back and forward. Like, we were saying apples, they were saying pears, and you know, who has ever talked to a team for like an hour and to realize that you don't even agree on the whole core concept of what you're talking about? Okay, so that's fun. So we revamped this. I basically were like, okay, it doesn't make sense to continue this discussion. By the way, this was the math you see in this talk. Hope you pay a lot of attention to it. Okay. We had a new meeting, right? There I went prepared better. I drew it out to them. I said, like, look, just because we said a linear problem a linear model at the beginning and a simple incremental experiment at the beginning does not mean that we are not gonna, you know, do it better next time, like in time when we have more time, and then at least, you know, we fix this first city and move on. So we do the first model. It's going to be easy to integrate. You can put it directly in Java, what you have, and then whatever. We came up with over 60 features. So you definitely cannot try manually all the possibilities to combine 60 features. And we showed them how we are going to do it, and then they were cool, and then they were like, then we had other discussions on how do we evaluate it. So from a data science perspective, you have the historical data and you say we can, you know, say how accurate or not it is in the past. And they're like, no, but we can like run it live for a week and see how good it is. And then this again went back and forth. That was interesting. And then the PO, the product owner from the other team, actually wrote the minutes. So I didn't know about minutes at that time. They wrote the minutes, and then came the meeting minutes. Version 3, neural networks. What? Nobody ever said that we were going to do neural networks for this problem ever. But anyway, there it was. So you have to, you know, own the meetings, meeting notes. So basically what I mean is that like a lot of things could have been done better in the first interaction, and it's really positive experience when you do it right the first, at least learn from them. So basically this is what I kind of think of product management. You have to be like really diplomatic. Who here feels like they cannot be diplomatic? Is there anybody who has issues with being diplomatic? See? So you'd need a product manager in your life, right? I mean, like, come on. Okay, so that being the use case I had, let's think a little bit how I see like the role of product management in a team. It does not necessarily have to be one person. Sometimes this role gets shouldered by more people in the team. It depends on the structure that you have. So it's more like, the way I see it is like a market merchant. So I use this one because I live in Hamburg and people there eat a lot of fish. It's port, you know. So you have the merchant at the market, right? That guy knows what he's selling. You know, nobody's gonna come to him and say, look, I want this fish cheaper, or I want this in, I don't know, half the story points or whatever, who does Scrum or Jira. So he knows what's the velocity, how much it costs for him to get it, how much he has to get for it, right? Then he also knows the effort that it's like going in to get this fish. So there's like from this the value of it, and then also he knows that, like, for example, did you know that you cannot really buy fish on Monday? So Monday is not a good fish day to buy fish. If you buy fish on Monday, it's from Saturday, especially in Germany where everything is closed on Sunday. So even if you come and tell them, like, look, I want the fish on Monday, and it's like, yeah, but the fish is going to be bad. Do you really want the fish on Monday? So this is the same you have, like, when you do software projects. Somebody says, but I want this yesterday. And you're like, yeah, my team cannot deliver this yesterday, right? And so basically, this is really important. And the other thing that is also, like, important regarding the diplomatic part, this merchant can talk to anybody who wants to buy fish. He can talk to the persons who know everything about fish, and he can also talk to the people who don't know anything about fish. And basically, his purpose is he wants to sell the fish, right? He's got no win if he goes home with the fish. So he's gonna, like, figure out how to talk to the person that makes sushi out of the fish, and also to the person that makes fish and chips. Nothing against fish and chips. Anybody from England here? No, good. I was just, I don't want to insult anybody. Anyways, so, and the other part is that this person has to be always in a good mood, like, have you ever implemented something for somebody who came at you screaming that they want it, or be really, like, insulting you about it? So they have to be, like, in a really good mood all the time, even if he's like, oh my God, this person I'm talking to is so stupid. Sometimes we all think that about some people, and we have to pretend we don't think that. So the same with the fish market person. I think, like, product managers have, like, all sorts of stakeholders, and they have to treat them and be able to speak their language. So what are the stakeholders? One of the first stakeholders is the user themselves. So you're building a product. When you work in a company that builds features that they end up on an app, on whatever, those are your users, are those people using the app. They are not your team, they are not the next team, they are those users. And for those users, you have to understand what those users want, right? And unless your company is actually, advocating that they do everything with machine learning, a user doesn't care if the value that they see on their phone is coming from machine learning or a simple heuristic, or you calculated it on paper, yeah? But what they do care is how true it is. So let me give you an example. Who here remembers a good job recommendation? Okay, who here remembers getting bad job recommendations? It was really irritating, right? You really expect, like, oh, come on. Why am I getting a bad recommendation? Why do I get an internship position? I'm already a senior. Like, seriously, right? For example. So users are really prone to detect, is it slow? Is it wrong? Can you still hear me? So they're not really gonna care if it's accurate, but they are really gonna care if it's inaccurate. I mean, this depends on the use case, right? But of course, if you're curing people of heart disease or brain tumor, they are also gonna care about how accurate it is. But for this business case where I'm predicting how much the trip costs, they are really gonna care if it's inaccurate. Like, if I say the trip is gonna cost 5 euros and then it's 10 euros, then I'm gonna be annoyed. If I say it's 10 euros and it's gonna be 5, then it's gonna be like, oh, it's nice, right? Or I don't even take the trip in the first place, but at least I'm not upset with the app. I will use it next time. So basically, this is not an accuracy that we define in mathematics. This is an accuracy that is more like from a user perspective. And we need to basically think about it, like, what is the user metric that we need to optimize towards? And for this one, we already, as a team, like the data science team has to build, and all the company has to build, like, dashboards and everything, because we are talking about data. So within a bigger company, you also work with other product teams. If you have more teams, you're not really gonna be necessarily the one person, the one team that pushes the product to the user. You're gonna usually work with other teams, like there's a front-end team, or there's a, I don't know, an app team. You're like the back end and so on. And as a product manager, you need to be able to talk to those teams on a different level than you think about the user, right? You need to talk to those teams when you say, okay, we are going to improve your product that you've worked on, Now we're going to do it better with data. And you need to be able to say that in a way that you don't say that what you've been doing so far was wrong. And this is like really tricky in data science because a lot of people in data science think that they are now the best at working with data. And everybody who worked on that problem before did it wrong. And that's why, especially in data science team, I think that is really important to have somebody who's very diplomatic about things when talks to other people. And another thing that is important to say when you work with product teams that are going to use your output is that you have to say, I'm giving you data, you're showing this to the user, I need to have this tracked. Like, there should be, under no circumstance, you say like, I'm giving you data and I don't know what you do with it. Because you then do not really have control if this team doesn't change the output. So as an example, especially if you integrate yourself in a company that has had a little bit, like it's an older company, you will have parts of products over different teams. So, and you will not really have easy control to the path to the user. So we are basically estimating the trip. We say point-wise estimate is going to be 11.6 euros. And then the pricing team says, but we show the user a range. And they decide what the range boundaries are. And then you say, okay, if you want to decide those boundaries, we need to know what boundaries you show to the user, because then we are evaluating, again, apples, and you're showing pears to the user. And this is like one of the hardest things to get pushed in a company that is new at data science, to say like every piece of data has to be tracked. This is like, so most of the companies, when they're like growing a little bit higher, like bigger, they are actually ending up hiring people just dealing with tracking, policing other teams. So, because this is like, it ends up being pushed top down in the end, because it's like you say like, yeah, I cannot monitor my services, I cannot monitor the accuracy of my models and all that, unless people are tracking that. And it's like kind of work that there is no real reward for a developer team, right? It's like you didn't push a feature on, there's like, you didn't like improve anything. Okay, the next funny stakeholder of the product manager in a data science team is the data scientist. So some people here said they are data scientists, so you know, from the data scientists here, who here likes to work on boring tasks? I mean, even software developers, who here likes working on boring tasks? Like, wouldn't it be nice if we could have for every person in the room another team that does the boring stuff? You know, like, and basically, we all want to work on exciting things all the time, but actually, and then we see all the Medium articles and all the people are writing a lot of blogs about how cool everything is, and then we start a new job, and then we realize you have to clean data. Or worst thing that can happen is you start working in a company that doesn't have a data engineering team, and then they say you have to do data science on manually collected CSV files. That's worst thing that can happen. Let's say we do not have this case. So as a product manager for a data science team, you basically kind of have to understand how the life cycle of a data project is, in order to not be an overhead for the team, but be like, you know, helping the team. So you have to understand that there's data exploration, there's coming up with an initial approach, a POC, and trying things out, failing often, all of this. You also have to be able to push in the team the fact that you decided, the whole team decided with the other teams, and based on the users that you have, you decided on an accuracy metric from the user perspective. And whatever model you come up with has to be evaluated based on that accuracy metric, not just based on mean reciprocal rank, root mean square error, and all other machine learning metrics that you could come up to evaluate your model. So ideally, and basically a lot of data scientists are going to be like, I don't want to calculate that stupid user metric. It's just like an average of something. It doesn't look like math or something. And how does that even relate to the other metric that the whole world puts in papers and everything. And this is something that has to be continually pushed, because you cannot talk to stakeholders and say, look, we are doing root mean square error, but I cannot explain to you the formula in one sentence. Yeah, so people from other teams understand like things that are average, sums, and so on, but not really like, when you put like math, like we had the situation, we put like math formula, we did a workshop in the company, and then was like, oh no, I don't want to see any math. I was like, okay, well, that's a little bit of math, it's not that much. Anyways, and the other thing that is really important is like to define from a product perspective when is good enough. I mean, you can work on a problem forever, right? And you have that also in software engineer. You can go what is called over-engineering. Who here likes over-engineering? Who here likes doing code review on over-engineered pull requests? You like doing that? Okay. Okay. So I would really like to hear like if anybody has a solution for how to help people from over-engineering. Yeah, but if you punish them, that's not gonna help them.
So I mean that using a code review can be a way to spread knowledge that over-engineering is not a correct way to do. That you want to maximize the user value, actually.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Yeah. So basically, with data scientists, they really like a lot to work with. Really like to work with Jupyter notebooks, and if you know that, that's like a nightmare to even code review. It's you don't even have control on the execution of the cells, the order, and you can have like the middle of the script was executed before the top of the script, and that changes everything. I mean, this can happen unless you pay attention. Yeah. So basically, having like be able to push in the team, and this is really hard, and that's why I say that the data scientist, like the team itself, is a stakeholder for the product manager, because this kind of dynamics are like unpopular. Like I would really like to spend like at work, like going creative and like looking at things from all the possible angles, but sometimes you like have to deliver something today, or and this is like not really a popular way to look at things and say like, okay, that's cool, but now we have to move on to the next topic because that's more important and things like that. And the last stakeholder, it's a funny one, it's the management, the upper management. As you can see, even to this day, a lot of companies and a lot of upper management thinks data science is going to be something magic. You hire some data scientists, and now you can make a lot of money out of that data you have. And they do that. They say, let's get 6 data scientists in 3 months. They are going to work really wonders, and they're getting the first product out in 3 months. Who here has worked and got a product out in 3 months, like at the beginning of a data science team? Or any product out, like any kind of software development? It's so Christian, you saw his talk earlier, plants, farming. We have to ask him afterwards how he did that. So basically, but this is what management expects, and the thing with data is that you can end up working on a solution and look at it for 2 months and then figure out that you were in the wrong direction completely. So basically what you have to do is, as a product manager, is always give presentations left and right, up and down, and or push the team to do it, and also basically not just present the successes, but also present the failures. Because every time you present what didn't work, you basically save the company from testing it on innocent users, right? So is there anybody who basically had an approach in this room and then tested it on users just to find out that was a very bad approach? Like, it doesn't have to be from your team, but like, have you worked in a company like that? Okay, so it's really it can be really expensive, right? And if you can like figure that out in the data beforehand, that's like actually, and sell it, that look, we did that experiment, definitely no go. That's actually a viable lesson. And if nobody's talking about it or presenting it, we are only presenting success stories, then nobody's learning from the errors, and then we're doing the same mistakes in another team. So basically, these were like from the team's dynamics, how you interact with people, and then I'm gonna go a little bit into like, what about the data product? Like, so we looked at the stakeholders, but like so there were like a few data scientists here, and there's a lot of software engineers. And so what is the work that needs to be done to actually put a data product in production? So usually we have this situation. Take a moment. So we often hear stories in data science where people have worked in companies for a very long time they did really cool experiments, they had great ideas, they had great solutions, and none of them got to production. And then they leave those companies. So, and most often they do blame the politics, because there was nobody pushing things around so that things get to where they have to get, right? So, but it's not always politics that is the reason. I mean, because like if you say it's politics, we are all giving up, right? So I grew up in communism, and you know, you're raised to give up on politics. Who here grew up in communism? Yeah. So like, you know, if you say it's politics, then you're already okay, I can't fix it. But it's actually, if you think about it, like a lot of the data science, data teams in general, they work very isolated from the rest of the company. And then they implement the product and they got good results, and then they just go to the product team and say, look what we have, put it in production. And that takes a year, right? And by the time this goes to production, like the whole company moved to a completely different direction. So one way to turn this around is like the same, like how I went through the presentation also, is just basically start with the user and have it like from the very first that it's going to go to production, and then build it like that. So let's say, how does the user see a data product? Back to the user, right? So the user sees a black box, right? They don't know how it's calculated, don't even care, right? You can write a Medium article, you can write a blog about it, you can write a paper if you want, but the user is most likely not going to read that paper. So the user wants it to be accurate / not wrong. Depends on the use case, of course. If it's surgery, then it's more than that, right? But we're talking about like just simple, non-lethal business, no weapons testing or anything. So the output has to be perceived as accurate. So how does this black box look like from the product teams? So from the product teams, you have, so now this is like super simplified, right? So you have a predictor, you get like whatever is forecasted, predicted. You have some decision going on if it's correct or not, and if it's correct and everything is fine, it goes to the product service, and the service, whatever that service is, feeds it to the user. There has to be testing done, tracking, monitoring. And now the code that actually goes into is it correct depends on how important this prediction is, right? So if it's between life and death, then this is like the whole logic will go into is it correct? And if it's like not life and death, then it's like if else, whatever. So if you look at some papers also from Microsoft and whatever, they have like, there's like a small bubble of like the neural network that they have, and then like a lot of microservices just to make sure that the user doesn't get something wrong. So let's see how the gray predictor looks like from the data science department perspective. So it's kind of like this. So now we are expecting data scientists to be software engineers, right? So who here is a data scientist and is not a software engineer? Nobody. So so basically, we have the data, the historical data we collected. We have the model gets trained. We have the accuracy metric from the user and from the model. This has to be repeated whenever the accuracy goes down. Somehow more or less automatic. Would be nice when it's completely automatic. This trained model goes to production and gets updated whenever a new model is better, and then the predictor uses that together with some features that gets live features from the user or aggregated depending. And one of the, like I wrote it there like really small, but it's actually quite challenging, is to do proper data integration testing. So if you have, in software engineering you have unit tests, but in data science, when you deal with data products, you actually have to create data tests. You have to basically prepare fake possible data and make sure that that model that you have in the Jupyter notebook that you wrote at some place behaves the same like the one that is in production. It's really tricky. So, but there's ways to do it. All we just have to do is do it. So is there anybody here who doesn't like testing? So it's a thing also in data. So if you, okay, so what about the management? What does the management want? Black box, leading to a lot of money and dwarfs. Like, well, if we're here, right? So we have dwarfs. I had to personalize the talk. So management wants dashboards, KPIs, money goes up. You know, they're really good at reading the dashboards. So I think I talked too fast. So basically, my next slide is gonna summarize. I made a mind map of like, what is the job of a data science project manager? And that's the mind map. It's small. I mean, it's not a lot of things that you have to be good at. Right? So from the user perspective, just to summarize, so from the user perspective, you have the accuracy metric. You have, basically, you need to be able to transform the user insights to something that is quantifiable, right? And this has to be monitored all over through the lifetime of this project, of this product, and has to be available to be seen through the whole company. Then from the product, you have to be able to talk to other product people, and you need from them to, if they use your service, they need to implement tracking. And nicely now, everybody, I guess, is using either Kafka or RabbitMQ. So tracking is it got like way easier than it used to be, right? So, and when you work with the product team, you have to basically tell them like, when do you expect to get something? And basically, it's really important to define an SLA, even for data projects, so a service license agreement. Because if it is not written, it never happened, right? So I'm not sure, like, if it ever happened to you that you talk to somebody, you agree on something, and then you meet again in 2 weeks, and then you realize they totally forgot about it. And then you feel like, this is deja vu? Are we just really having this discussion all over again? And this is, it can get really annoying, and then until you learn that you have to write meeting notes for everything, then yeah. Again, for the data science team, you need data literacy, right? Because it's nice to talk to people that understand you and you don't have to explain to them. For this, if you're just the product manager for a normal team, all you have to do to get this data literacy is really do some, this is the only time I give this advice, to really do some Kaggle challenges or courses or Coursera courses. You know, you need to be able to talk about data, and then that's a really good introduction place to go and be able to talk about data. And you need to present this often to the management, and then you also need to understand that the data science team will want to automate as much as possible, so there has to be time for that. So who is the product manager? What do they have to do? They have to think like a wise woman, man. Communicate in the language of people, right? All of the people. So So basically, coming back to my opinion from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I think managing projects in general is way underestimated as a job. Like, if you like writing code 24 hours, well, 8 hours a day, you really will appreciate the part that somebody else is taking over the responsibility of interfacing you to people that you have to talk all the time to. And if you do not believe me, I give you the challenge to play the role for like a couple of weeks and see if you have time to write any code, right? And so next time when you think you do not appreciate product managers. And yeah, so I think I was too fast, but it's late. So me, yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I have the Tia Piap brand, and I founded the Pylades in Hamburg. You can ask me if there are any women in the room, if you want to organize Pylades in your city, you can ask me about it. And since 2019, I mean this year, October, I'm also board member for the Python Software Verband, where if you want to organize a Python event in Germany or around, you can contact us. And if you have any questions,